Hi, I'm Kath from KathleenRob.com, and thank you so much for joining me today. Today, I really wanted to talk about how I helped my fatty liver. So, it's a story I talk about a little bit because it's part of why I'm passionate about what I do. Oh, by the way, excuse the dogs roaming in the background and everything else. My daughter's out for 5 seconds. I'm grabbing the opportunity to record. Um, so back when my daughter was about 1 year old, or maybe even a little bit younger than that, I began to feel just a little bit off, and I was fine. I could easily have ignored it, but I'd had people around me ignore symptoms and it not turn out so well for them. So even though it's just a really minor thing, I thought, you know what, I'm just going to get it checked out. And I was really glad I did because my liver blood enzymes were out and I got a scan and it showed that I had a fatty liver. And at this point, I want to say that my normal GP is amazing, but the GP I saw for this was a little bit more cut and dried about things, and he just told me you've got a fatty liver, and that was it. He didn't say anything about, you can improve it and change your lifestyle, and you need to do something about it, or this is what could happen if you ignore it. He just diagnosed me, and that was the end of the appointment. Luckily for me, I'm a health professional and I am passionate about research and I research what to do about it. But it's really important to me to share my story because there might be other people who get a diagnosis like that and think it's just how it needs to be. When he told me you've got a fatty liver, I just went into full rebellion mode and just got really hell no and said, well, you know what, in a year's time, I'm going to be your healthiest patient. And this is my story about what I did next. So, first and foremost, I decided that I was going to be healthy. And that was an automatic thing. I wasn't doing it as a strategy, it was just instinctive to say, heck no, I'm going to be healthy. But since then, looking into the psychology of habit change, it's really, really important and vital to make a clear decision, not just saying, oh, yeah, I'm going to think about changing my diet and perhaps I'll get around to doing more exercise, or in the new year I'll have a New Year's resolution. All this wishy-washy stuff isn't what makes the difference. What makes the difference is saying, no matter what, I'm going to fix this. I'm going to do what I can. I'll do everything in my power and being really adamant, like, this is what is happening. The decision didn't mean that I was perfect in my diet or that my weight loss was linear and smooth sailing, or I'd never slipped up. It didn't mean that at all. But making that decision was mandatory for getting the results I did, which was to reverse my fatty liver and lose 24 kilos, which isn't how it goes for everyone, and also depends very much on where someone is in their journey with fatty liver, because if scarring of the liver's already occurred, it's very different. I was at the very, very early stage, so that's important. So everyone's results are different, but to get the best results that we can with our health picture, making that decision and being adamant, I am doing something about this, whatever it takes, is really key. Having said that, I was also really, really self-compassionate. So this sounds really fluffy and woo-woo, but I knew I was significantly overweight at the time before I got my diagnosis, and I'd tried weight loss previously and I've never stuck to it, and always felt like I was never good enough until I lost the weight, or always had that body dysmorphia that Western women are brought up to have. Basically, I wasn't the normal amount of critical about my body, but when I got to that point of being that overweight, I decided the first thing I'm going to do before even trying to lose weight is come from a really kind place for myself. And I did a lot of work on how I talk to myself and being kind to myself, and just being, practicing being my own best friend and cheering myself on in everything in life. And that stood me in really good stead when it came to taking action. So I think that was absolutely essential to my success, was that rather than, when I did slip up from time to time and still do, rather than giving up and calling myself a failure in my efforts, it's like, no, come on, this is normal, this is human, get back onto it, we can do this. And that way of talking to myself is what kept me going for the long haul, because losing 24 kilograms is a long haul if you do it in a healthy, sustainable way. The next thing that was really key was beginning with what was obvious and not waiting for things to be perfect. So I will research and overthink things forever before I do anything. And I love the research stage. But I didn't wait after I got that diagnosis of fatty liver. I didn't wait till I had the perfect plan. I started with what was obvious. And what was obvious for me was that I was snacking on junk food after dinner. I would have, salt and vinegar chips and chocolate. And during the day, I would, drink soft drinks and snack on things. But that after dinner junky snack was very clearly, no matter what health plan I ever chose, was very clearly not going to be on it. So I just started there, just not snacking after dinner. And that was enough, just not snacking after dinner, because one, it was less snacking and less spiking of blood sugar, but also the snacks I was choosing had zero nutritional value and very, very junky. Just that got me starting to lose weight. So if I'd waited for the perfect plan, I would have missed out on getting the ball rolling and getting the momentum going just by doing what was obvious and right in front of me. So begin with what was really obvious. There's probably a habit is not helping you, or an obstacle to getting the result you want that you can start with. So we don't have to have the whole answer. We just need to know what our next right action is. The next thing that happened, because I was researching, giving up my snacks, but I was doing heaps of research, rather than just following fad diets, it was really important to me this time around to understand what was actually going on in my body when I put on weight, and got my fatty liver. What was the physiology of that, and what was the problem? What was the cause? So I didn't want to follow another women's magazine fad diet. I didn't have it in me to do stupid things that weren't going to work. So I wanted to know what is actually causing my weight gain, and how can I directly address it in a way that's much more likely to succeed. So what I found out was that there's certain things that we do that increase our blood sugar, and then we have to produce more insulin to keep it under control. And when we're producing more and more insulin, we become insulin resistant, and the insulin, instead of being able to have our muscle cells take up the sugar from our blood to use as energy, what tends to happen is we take it to our liver and store it as fatty liver. So that was what was happening for me. So I had to take the actions that would not spike insulin. It was very, very clear. And by understanding that, I had a much clearer cause of action and less temptation to follow one diet gimmick after another. So on that, I broke up with sugar and gave certain foods the right containment, sugary, processed carbohydrate type foods. They had to be contained differently in my life to manage my blood sugar and my insulin. So refined carbs like the chips and the chocolate and junk food, and just remove them as much as possible. So my way of thinking is have none, because I have trouble having a medium relationship with these foods. I'm kind of all or nothing. If it's in the house, I'll eat it. If I start eating a bag, I will finish the bag. So some people are good at moderating themselves. I'm an all or nothing compulsive person. So for me, it's easier just quitting, but then not being punitive if I fall off the wagon, just get back on it, So my after dinner grazing was already gone, but it was also, mid-afternoon snack bars, things that were protein bars, but also had heaps of sugar, dried fruit, crackers, all those processed sugary carby foods had to go. And I was understanding that's the cumulative effect of these foods that were adding up to the fatty liver. I didn't have to be derailed by a lapse, because as long as I didn't let that lapse become the cumulative effect, if the cumulative effect and the overall effect was much less of those foods, then I'm still on track. So I don't have to have all or nothing thinking about it. So giving up on those foods, and then after having as little as possible of them for quite some months, learning how to have a bit more of a moderate relationship. So now I can have a handful of chips without feeling like I need to eat all the chips on the planet. And this is a good thing, but it took me a little while to get there. I couldn't go straight there. That wasn't my path. The other thing I did was I fasted. So I use intermittent fasting, which is really amazing for lowering insulin. Um, you know, excess insulin was part of the picture for me. So fasting helped lower my insulin and helped address that issue. But I introduced it gradually. So I just began by not snacking after dinner, which automatically meant I was fasting from dinner to breakfast the next day. And then I made that overnight fast go to 12 hours, and then that became 14 hours. And I stayed at a 14-hour fast for probably a year or two. And that was what got me the 24-kilogram weight loss. And now I tend to be a bit more of a 16-hour fast most days, because that is what's helping me maintain it, and just I've got a few kilograms left to go. So I would recommend, if you're going to try fasting, do it under the guidance of a health professional, because it can be tricky if you have thyroid problems, if you've got a history of eating disorders. It can mess up your hormones a little bit, and you want to be sure that you're maintaining a healthy relationship with food, etc. So yeah, work with a health professional on that who does that kind of thing, like a nutritionist, a naturopath like myself, functional medicine doctor, etc. And go at the pace that is sustainable for your lifestyle and your body. So for some people who have some of these issues, you might be able to do a 14-hour or 12-hour fast, and that might just help you along the path a little bit to get your health under control without derailing other things. And it also has to be sustainable. There's no point being a 16-hour a day faster and then it lasts a week and you're like, whoa, fasting is not for me. Rather be able to do it forever. The thing was being able to eat real food. So mostly in my life I've eaten healthy meals, but was having junky snacks. So that was really important to me, to cut out the junky snacks and to stick to more real foods in my diet. Veggie sticks, soup, salads, fruit, that kind of thing, nuts. I then also added in moving a bit more. So I'm not doing even now even close to the ideal amount of exercise, but luckily for me, my dietary changes did all the heavy lifting in my health improvements. But just adding a little bit more movement where I saw the opportunity. Back in caveman days, there were no gyms. It's not how things were when humans came into existence. But we moved a lot. So even if you don't have to wait for the perfect exercise routine or gym routine or program, just looking for opportunities to move. So I'm very much, the season of my life is mum life. And for me, moving was dancing to Baby Shark with my daughter, or taking her to playground and pushing her on the swing and running around with her. And that's where I get my opportunities. For some people, it's about catching public transport and walking a little bit extra, or taking the stairs instead of the lift. So looking for the opportunities in life just to move a bit more, and introducing habits slowly. If you can't do the perfect high intensity 40-minute workout 3 times a week, just move more than you were before, do some extra steps or whatever. And on that, the thing that made this successful for me, hands down, compared with every other time I've tried to improve my health and failed, is that I changed incrementally. Every time I failed in this in the past was when I tried to change everything at once. It's the 12-week boot camp kind of thing. And it didn't work. So I've been trying to eat, breakfast, lunch and dinner according to some plan it was given, and it wasn't food I liked. It wasn't what I ate. It didn't digest well for me. It just didn't agree with me. I couldn't sustain it. It wasn't the foods available at my local supermarket. It was just unsustainable immediately, and it would fall off the wagon. Whereas this time round, I did one small sustainable change at a time and built up a positive momentum from that. It's also really key to get the right mindset. So allow for the cha-cha. It's not going to be all forward. It will be forward and then back, forward and back, as long as the overall momentum is progress and improvement. That's how it tends to go. It's really linear. And also the number on the scales is not the only thing happening. It's also about, how I'm feeling and the wellness, and I'm setting up habits that will see me through the future, that kind of thing. So having a mindset that allows for improvements that are harder to measure, and also that even if the one that you are measuring, such as the number on the scales, even if it goes backwards and forwards a bit, seeing that as part of it and being able to see just every 100 grams on the scale that comes off as something to celebrate, and then persevering until you get the next 100 grams down, rather than thinking, oh, it only counts when I'm 5 kilograms lighter. No, if you're 100 grams lighter, you've actually done a lot of work, so celebrate it. This is just how I live now. So we often tell ourselves we're going to be good till we get the kilos off. You know, we don't want to be obsessive and extreme, but we also don't want to have this kind of full-on diet and then just snap back to our previous habits, but somehow hope that we'll get better results this time around. Unfortunately, for most of us, our previous habits got us our current results. So if we want different results, we need different habits. And I find it, rather than resisting that and thinking, how long do I have to do this, just deciding this is how I live now. And we come to enjoy that new way of living because it feels so much better. Having energy and having a good mood and feeling well and getting good results when you get a blood test and, you know, improvements in the things that are important to you is definitely worth some lifestyle changes. So my fatty liver diagnosis transformed my life. I have a different benchmark of what a balanced diet is and a new relationship to food, a new relationship to my body. And it's important to note that that new relationship came before the weight loss. So it's not like I'm skinnier, therefore I like myself better. It's I like myself better, therefore I did what I needed to for my health. And in general, I have a whole lot more compassion for myself. So really, regardless of what diagnosis you are managing for yourself, I really invite you to take this path too of more self-compassion, of incremental change, of working with what's manageable, of accepting the cha-cha of it all, and to progress forward from that point. I'd love to be part of your journey and by your side. So sign up for the Shop Like a Naturopath guide to start looking at some healthy shopping habits and become part of my tribe. You'll get my manageable strategies, my newsletter, and I would love to partner with you to transform your health and your weight. Until next time, bye.